Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
How are you, fellas?
Good. How are you, dude?
All right, good. By the way, John, your taste in artists is impeccable. I just need you to know that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
In all humility.
Yeah. You, dude, do you have any? I got to ask you this because a lot of my comic book art shirts I notice are not John Romita Jr. approved. Is there any, like.
That's a good question. I wish I knew. I'm sure that there are some out there, but I've seen some get prepared at conventions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Printed up, and they do them at. But as far as the company and other companies, I don't know. I wish I knew. And listen, I couldn't wear one. I would be one of those guys, but I could never wear one. I've never seen one. I don't know.
Yeah, man, because there's rarely ever any. This is what we're going to talk about for the next hour. It's just my complaints about Spider-Man shirts. But there's never really. It's really hard to find a good one, and I feel like your art would be perfect on one of that.
All right, I appreciate that. I got to talk to somebody. We'll see what they say at Marvel.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the time we have.
That's it.
Yeah, that was it. So how are you? So most of my, I feel like most of my artist friends and writer friends over the course of the pandemic, I've kind of asked them how they're doing, and they're like, I don't see the sun anyway. So, but you're Italian. You're a social person. You know what I mean? You go out. So have you been affected at all?
Just socially, exactly. But the business-wise, we work at home. And the guys I talk to, the same thing. You know, this is one of the great things about this job. First of all, at the beginning, we felt like being a cartoonist was important because we weren't affected. Things did get affected over the course of the year, but we stayed at home and we work at home, and everybody went virtual and went remote. The editors are calling from their houses. They're working on their laptops.
Right.
Whoever was getting the lease money from Marvel is getting stiff because they don't need the offices anymore. Everything's done remotely.
Right. And do you think that's going to change the business in any way? Like, do you think you guys are just nobody's going to come into the offices at this point?
I feel like I think there are people that are required that need the office for their work. If they lose their jobs over this, I feel bad. Yeah. However, with laptops, I think 90% of the jobs can be worked from a remote laptop. And the editors and the other people involved, the editors, the assistant editors, it looks like we're functioning. I get constant work with constant talk, and the writers, same thing. And I scan high-res scans to the other artists and the writers. It's working out. We're massaging ourselves around the edges, and it's working out.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome because I feel like during this kind of thing, like I have favorite comic book stores, everybody does or whatever. One of my buddies has one right down the street from him. They're doing well. I think he's actually alone keeping them in business because he'll send me stuff that they've got or stuff that he just bought from the store or whatever. So that's awesome. But one of the ones that I love, what is that?
I wonder if the stores, I don't know, did the stores suffer for a long period of time because they were reopened? I was wondering about that.
You know what? I think I think comic book stores in general don't usually have a giant staff unless it's like Midtown Comics, something like that. I don't know for sure. But all the local ones that I kind of know, they got one guy with longer hair than me and he works behind the counter and, knows every issue and stuff. One of my favorite ones that when I'm on the road or whatever is one, believe it or not, in Rochester, New Hampshire called Jetpack Comics. And though I was concerned, I became friends with them over the years and, I just asked him how he's doing. He's like, I feel kind of bad. I'm doing great. It's like we're shipping stuff out. He was getting new stuff in, and he had sent me some stuff just to keep me going over the different comic books that I'd never heard of and whatever. And so I'm happy. I'm glad the comic stores are holding
things worked out. Now it's a slow return because the industry itself took a bit of a shot. So we'll see if it can catch back up to where it was. We'll see.
Right.
I'm looking forward to trying.
Yeah, and well, you're returning to Marvel in July, right? That's what I'd heard.
That is correct.
That's awesome, dude. Because you were sorely missed.
Saying that. I hope I didn't say anything too fast, but that's correct. I got something coming out in July.
I think I read. Oh God, I hope I didn't get it from.
No, it was released. Marvel released it. And,
okay, good.
Yes, July. Something will be coming out in July. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Well, we're not allowed to know what it is, though, right?
That's correct. I got to keep my mouth shut, and that's not easy for a Sicilian, a New York Sicilian, keeping my mouth shut.
I hear you. I won't ask any more about it, but I did want to because I noticed like through every article that I did read, they weren't telling me what you were involved in, and I was like, son of a. But that's
so that part I'll keep quiet. That part I'll keep quiet.
That's cool, man. So the impact you've had on. I started reading comics again because of you, because your artwork, which by the way, I have issues of stuff that you've done in the early days, but your artwork kind of changed from that over the years. I think more drastically, I think, than some other artists, like noticeably. You know what I mean? Was that a conscious thing that you did, or was it just natural progression over time?
That was because I sucked so bad when I first started that as I got better, it looked like a style change. I did have a moment where I tried something different, a blocky style, because I was told it would give more mass to the characters. That was the concerted effort, and then I massaged and I got easier with it. But I never really tried a style change as much as I got better as I got. If you do something 12 hours a day for 40 years, you got to improve.
Right.
Otherwise, you won't be doing it.
Yeah.
So I got a little better as I got older, and that's it. And I work around great people, and I have a brilliant father who's the Michael Jordan of artists.
Yes.
I got a chance to watch him.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I'm the white guy on the end of the bench. He's Michael Jordan.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. I love that. And you guys kind of, I feel like your dad and then you both kind of redesigned the Spider-Man look to perfection. Both.
I appreciate that. Wow.
Because I think like your version of Spider-Man has always been my favorite, just because I feel like that's how he's supposed to look. He's thin but muscular. You know what I mean? It emphasizes the strength thing, and also one of my favorites, by the way. I'm going to try to bring it up right now if I can. But your Venom, I think when Venom I think came back, right? Like, because he was gone for a little bit. No, not even anti-Venom. Okay. I think it was like mid 2000 run or whatever, because Venom had been gone for a bit. And then he came back, and it was this. That I think is the best Venom I've ever seen, because the suit looked alive every time you drew it. Like,
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was again. Was that something else that you would notice you decided to do with the character, because no one ever drew it like that?
Nah, I call it deadline style. If it comes out on time, I'm happy with it. There are few and far between moments when I say I've got to do this as well as this guy. But it's been done before me, and I did have reference from other artists, so the costume was correct. And then I tried to use what the writer would infuse. It's a combination of things, but I never really made a conscious effort to do something like somebody, only better than somebody, and that was my impetus. I got to do better than this guy. And there's so many guys that listen. When I came in, and then guys came in 10 years after me, they were all great. I had competition. And it's not easy. You understand. There's people around you that are better than you on some nights, and damn, I got to get better. I cannot sit back on my ass and get lazy.
Right. And they keep you on your toes.
That comes into play with characters like that.
Yeah. That was because that was the first time first time for me anyway that I had seen it like drawn that way. So that was fucking awesome for me.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anything do you have like favorite writers that you like to work with in particular? Because there's the one run that you guys had, I think it was like a one-off, but it was basically the one issue where it was an Avengers, the new Avengers thing or whatever, but it was like when Apocalypse came back. It was like the time travel one with Kang. Hilarious comic, but I just thought the combination of the art, like it was a quick run. I think it was only like five comics or something like that, but I was like, that has to be fun. Great writer, great artist.
I'm going to be such a coward here, but I've worked with such great writers and so many great writers. I couldn't possibly, even if I did have a favorite, I don't know if I would want to open my mouth about it, but I've had such great luck with writers. Everybody from Neil Gaiman to Dan Slott that I'm working with right now, this beautiful top shelf of talent, bunch of guys. I couldn't possibly. Styles different, maybe their results are a little bit different, but I would work with any of them again. Mark Miller, oh my God, everybody! I'm so lucky. Frank Miller a couple of times. Frank and I have had great. Frank and I came into the industry at the same time. We had great luck together.
Wow!
It would be hard. I would be hard pressed unless there was a gun in one of my offices. I wouldn't be able to come up with a name. I think they're all fantastic. And that's a cowardly way. It's also a very honest way.
No, but that was great. That was a great answer too, because I mean, you just said when you started in the industry, I read this recently that you were 13.
Well,
did
I wasn't
know?
When I wasn't working regularly. I came up with an idea when I was 13, and Stan liked it, and it became the Prowler. And I got credit for it, and it was fun.
Right.
At the time, I couldn't go back to school and say, look at this, because comics were not so prevalent as they are now with internet and social media. But over the course of time, as I got older, then it became a fun thing to discuss.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you tend to, because you did create the Prowler, and then you also created Typhoid Mary, Forge, Hobgoblin. But I've noticed like you tend to downplay it a little bit. Like
that's simple. That's simple because at the age I started, there had been a history of brilliance before me. Mm-hmm. And characters are great before you. The villains that are created for those characters are great before you. The art is great before you. And then my father told me there's always going to be somebody better than you. Just deal with it. How you deal with it is how you become better.
Right.
So you keep your feet on the ground and you realize, Typhoid Mary I created based on my ex-wife. I hope she's not listening to this. Typhoid Mary's got a couple of more redeeming qualities than my ex-wife. But aside from that, I took things from life experiences on created characters. Mm-hmm. But Hobgoblin was based on the Green Goblin, so to speak. And other characters, I always had something that I based it on. I'm proud of what I created, but always remember that there's somebody that's done great characters before me. I can't stand up on a pedestal and scream and shout how great I am when there's great artists and writers before me that have done better jobs. It's honest. It really is. And it's a Romita thing. My father's never had an ego. If he can't have an ego, I can't have an ego.
That's a good lesson though, too, man. I mean, I feel like I because it's weird. Like, I think I like that explanation, because I think sometimes stuff I've read always seems like they make it seem like you don't necessarily like the characters that much. And that clarifies that it's not the characters. You're just very humble about, about what you created and what other people have created before you. So
I'm proud of the characters. I really am. And the writer and I have come up with some great ideas, and it's how they manifest that you ultimately, because you come up with a great idea and then you could screw the pooch and mess up with it. Mm-hmm. But the characters that, for instance, the Daredevil characters, Typhoid Mary and Blackheart and so on. Yeah. Some of the ideas that we played with Mephisto, because I couldn't imagine the devil having a pair of pants on. So we played more demonic with Andesenti and Mephisto. That kind of stuff, which was organic, I was so proud of. But I still say there are things that have been done that I envy, and I'm proud of what I do, but I will never get too crazy about it. I got more. Listen, I have more time left. I need to improve to get to where I want to be.
Wow, that's inspiring, man. Because one of the other things I was thinking too is like, so you have, you wrote and you created the Armor Wars and stuff, and also, like, do you get any kind of, because you did Iron Man in the very beginning, right? That was like when you started.
My first full book that I ever did. Yeah.
Are you, when you see the MCU and you see the movie stuff, do they kind of like ask you about, like, for just counsel on those things? Cause the Armor Wars series is coming out, and I feel like they got it. Like, that's your baby. You know what I mean? Like, do they come to you for counsel and stuff?
No. I get, when artists get together or writers get together or all of us get together, it's a good combination of, I like what you did here. Did you try this and try this? And what do you think? But it's never anything beyond that. It's superficial because nobody really wants to pick your brain and say, what did you do? I'd like to do the same thing. Right. Nobody says that.
Wow.
There's enough ego in artists where you got to do what you can do. Right. But there's always conversations about it. I love that run that you did. And much the same as you entered into this, you can't help that. You go to, like I said, go to a convention. After the convention's over, you sit at the bar, you talk about things, and artists will compliment each other, and then somebody will walk by and then they'll say, "Wow, I want to talk to her."
Yeah. That's incredible. Because does it drive you crazy that no one ever? Because I would be like, maybe a phone call would have been nice.
Ever, but it never gets to the point where somebody will say, "How did you do this? What can I do to this?" I get asked questions about what do you do to expedite to pick up your speed when you have this, and this. Do you do anything special? And I don't have any answers for everybody. Yeah. But when it comes to those runs, like you said specifically about the Armor Wars, it's more a little bit of congratulations. That was great. I really enjoyed you doing this, and this. and it doesn't really go beyond that. But artists just sit there and talk about art. It's kind of cool. Who's your favorite painter? Do you love MC Escher? Do you like the Wyeths, that kind of thing? Because you go into you walk into a gallery, you walk into any kind of museum, and you feel this big. Say, oh shit, I'm a cartoonist. Oh my god.
I did I got asked to do, so I draw cartoons and whatever at a book out. It's not about me, by the way, but I know I'm, but I did this. I know it's always, I hate talking about myself, but like just to that point though, too, I felt the same way. I got asked to do my first, art exhibit or whatever. One of the directors of this art thing that was opening up or whatever. It's like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, sure, I guess, or whatever. And I felt the same way. There was a dude who literally took bumpers off of cars, bent them or whatever the fuck he did, rearranged them. And, there was another guy who spent hours, with some kind of art style. I don't even know what the hell it was, but he was like layering paint where it almost looked like, I think he lost his wife because he was spending so much, you know what I mean? Like people whose blood and sweat. And I drew lines and threw them in frames or whatever. And the funniest thing is that I think it was pissing everybody off. People kept going to the cartoons because they had a point of view and whatever the hell it is. So I think I know what you mean. Where you like, I was like, oh, it's gonna be fucking brutal, and then it was kind of hilarious.
Everything is relative.
Exactly.
And, there are artists in the business who aren't as prolific as I am, possibly as cartoonists. Mm-hmm. They are painters in their spare time, and I can't compete with that.
Oh yeah.
I saw a guy on painted on a flight from New York to Boston on his tablet with his thumb. Wow. And he brought it up to me. He said, "What do you think of this?" Oh my god. It was brilliant. And the last I painted was in college. I got to get back to that. I can't wait. Again, but everything's relative. You see somebody that will blow you away and your feet come back down to the ground again.
Yeah. The painting thing I can't do either. I've never been able to paint. I don't know how people do. I'm blown away by all that. Anybody who does anything outside of cartoons, I'm always amazed because my brain doesn't work in any kind of way to do it. But it's crazy. Do you like having the comic book art thing, or do you ever get tired of do you ever have a character where you're like, I can't draw one more fucking line on Spider-Man's costume. You know what I mean? Because that is those lines, man. I don't know how you do. It's like, do you draw every to it?
Once you figure out the formula, it goes quicker. I've done it a couple of times. I haven't had a character that I despise drawing because of the complexity of the costume for over any long period of time. I think the Jack of Hearts was a pain in the ass. It was literally constant hearts everywhere. And then I pissed everybody off, and I created the visuals on Madame Web, which was equally as ridiculous. It was too much. And I had people say, "You really got carried away with the web stuff and the Spider-Woman there. You really shouldn't have done that."
Oh my god, that's crazy, man. And you had a great run with the X-Men and stuff too. But I heard you didn't really get along with Chris Claremont. Is there any truth to it?
It was not a malicious thing with Chris. Chris just was not thrilled about having an inexperienced guy on his book. He and I are good friends now. But over time, it was a matter of me as I got better and him putting up with me. And then I got a chance to go back and work with him again. But the great artists that were before me, he had been pledged to work with them. So I took a little bit of offense. And I remember my father saying, "Listen, everybody's got opinions. Keep your mouth shut, your hands in your pocket, and do your job."
Right.
I've said this a million times, if I swung at everybody that deserved to be hit, I would still be in prison, I swear. I just had to keep my mouth shut and learn. And I was an inexperienced guy at the time. Mm-hmm. But I worked with Chris, he gave me these intense scripts, fully scripted, and I followed along. And a couple of years later, I didn't need scripts anymore.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of everything's relative. And Chris at first was a little bit standoffish because he wasn't thrilled about having to drag this punk kid around. And then years passed, and we got along famously, and we did a good job together.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man, because it's your combination of the both of you is incredible.
Somebody's asking about, is there a character I'm excited to draw at Marvel? I haven't drawn the character yet. I would love to work on Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange. Always
That's
have.
Awesome. You haven't drawn Doctor Strange yet?
Well, not as
as a series.
Correct.
Right. That's awesome.
I got an idea for him, and I would love to play with it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. And
good question. Thank you very much, and I apologize for not answering sooner.
No worries at all. This is on us.
Okay.
We're supposed to field these.
I think John is better at fielding the questions than you, John.
Well,
I think he is.
In front of me.
Yeah, he was like, sorry about not getting to that right away. I'm like, like, I'll get to them later.
I do have a habit of going like, wait,
if somebody flashes a question across that I can answer without destroying the context of our conversation, you're welcome, Mr. Albatross. Okay, you're welcome.
Wow, he's even nicer to them than I am too, Mr. Albatross. I'm like, something, whatever. Wants to know if
if it doesn't segue, I'll try to be quiet, which is not easy. I got a big mouth.
What was it like for you? What's the most memorable so far in your career? Like storyline that you worked on, something that you always go back to.
Storyline. The most memorable is the 9/11 issue. Unfortunately, for the wrong reasons, but it's memorable, and it came about, and I didn't want to do it thinking it was a bad idea, and I was obviously wrong because they handled it well.
Right.
And I'm very proud of it. As far as, aside from something that serious, Man Without Fear with Frank was something I am the most proud of overall, from scratch to finish. I got to work with Frank, and that, listen, goes without saying. And Al Williamson, who's one of the greatest illustrators who ever worked in comics. I couldn't be more thrilled. And every time I see it, I look at it and I say, well, I had a good month. I'm very happy with this. Yeah,
that was a great run with Daredevil. That was when I actually really got into Daredevil. I wasn't really he was a cool character beforehand, but after when you did Daredevil, it was amazing.
I appreciate that. And working with Frank, I've worked with Frank on several occasions, and we just get along famously because we came into the industry at the same time, or maybe a couple of months apart, and we had the same kind of style, which was working from plots. And he's an artist originally, and he worked from a plot, and he would just send me plots. 2 or 3 sentences would give me 20 pages, or one paragraph would give me one panel. But it was all the kind of thing that we had done together, done at the same time when we came into the industry. So he would give me, for instance, the Superman year one that we did a couple of years ago, he gave me 15 pages of plot, and it came out to be 200 pages of artwork. Holy and I probably could have done 400 pages of artwork because it was juicy. It had so much, and that's the way I like to work because I've done it before, and I like working from plots. So if I had to pick and choose, I'd say Man Without Fear.
Wow. What 400 pages? So when you're doing your drawing and stuff like that, I use when I do. I mean, there's no equivalency, by the way, but I'll use a Cintiq or a drawing tablet. Are you a fan of that kind of stuff, or do you kind of still prefer
I'm still hammer and chisel. I go way back. Pencil and paper and erase, and especially erasers. Although the story is throw your eraser away because the first thing you put down generally is better than what you do if you erase it several times. However, pencil and paper, and I use different leads. For instance, I'm working on Shruggy and Bimbo as a graphic novel idea I come up with Howard Chaykin. And it's black and white pencil, and I'm using charcoals and pencil, side of the pencil, very, very grainy paper, heavy gauge paper. That to me is old style, but it looks like a 50s movie or a 60s movie. I love that. I love that cinematography, film noirish look.
Yeah,
so I would prefer, which can be probably replicated with a tablet. The guy that did that painting on the plane had said he had 200 different stylus textures. 200. Right. Oh my God! So I wouldn't have this constant gray din on my forearm.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's weird. I think in the beginning when you're starting to do that kind of stuff, you feel like it's cheating, but at the end of the day, you're like, fuck it. No, I mean, it's, I'm still trying to create stuff,
Correct.
But that is awesome. Are you a fan of the television shows, the movies and stuff like that? Like, are you a fan of seeing that kind of stuff? Because I feel like even the Daredevil Netflix show, which was far beyond the other ones, kind of took from your run.
Yeah, I was very proud of that, and I got some acknowledgement from the producer and director. Yeah, that you can't not be proud of that. That shows you Man Without Fear did. Listen, Frank's impetus, Frank's ideas, and then the two of us doing it together with Al. That could not be used in some capacity. But I'm very proud of that series, very, and I would love to see more of it, and I'm looking for it. And any time that happens, listen, when Kickass first came out. And my wife Kathy, said to me, and jokingly at the time, she said, "Try to act like you've been through this before. Don't get too excited." First time I saw my name on the screen, I just thought, shit, look at those. She says, calm down. But the pride in seeing somebody use your work, it goes without saying. Love it, and very proud of it.
Do you ever get any pressure from Marvel or anything like that? Like I noticed, like some of anytime a movie comes out, or there is somebody that is the quintessential, like Robert Downey being Iron Man or whatever, I'll notice the art start to change in some of the comic books or that. Do you prefer that where you're like, okay, now I've got somebody, I got to make him kind of look like, or do you prefer to do your own? The
only time that might happen is to adjust a costume slightly so it's not such a departure. And it might just be a casual comment from the editor. It might not be from corporate. Who knows? But it's slight. It's never anything to the extent you have to make everybody look like Robert Downey Jr. But Downey Jr. looks like Tony Stark to a certain extent with the facial hair. Right. It's give and take. If somebody were to say to me, make it look more like the costume in the film, Black Panther, for instance, I have no problem with that. It wouldn't bother me, and I think it's a nice coming together if it need be.
Yeah, that's what I always see. Some people seem to have such a problem with that, where they'll be like, "I think they're trying to make," because that's what I think. They'll be like, "I think they're trying to make so and so look a little bit more like the guy he's going to play in the movie or whatever." And I'm like, "Is that so much of it? If they long as they kind of look alike?" Because I think people don't.
The true readers, if they get ticked off about that, I'd like to sit down and talk to them and say, "But you understand? Let's bring it all together." If they say no, they like to be disparate about it, and this looks like the film, and this looks like the book, and that's the way I prefer it. Okay, and there's not a whole lot can be done. There's a guy that did the movie and distributed it and said he'd like to see some similarities. I'm sorry, I gotta follow along.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Do you have a preferred kind of art style that you like? Like I know you've got yours, whatever, but like when you're reading a comic book, is there something that you prefer to see your characters look more like? Because there's for me personally, there's some I can't. The art really makes it for me in most of the comic books. And whenever I see any of the X-Men or Spider-Man be portrayed too cartoony when they're not supposed, I lose interest, man. I don't know what it is.
I look at the pictures too. I rarely read a dialogue in a book because I want to see the art, and I'm keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, at first cartoony styles which were different. There was the Ditkos, the Romitas, the Buscemi's, the Kirbys, Frank Miller, Jim Lee's guys with our disparate styles. Love seeing styles. And as realism became more prevalent, seeing Neil Adams' style, which was a little bit more realistic, I honestly couldn't pick and choose. So I couldn't consciously do what I wanted to do, which was look as good as everybody and be realistic and stylized at the same time. So if it came out on time, I was happy with it. I could not pick and choose if I was forced to. I like style, but I like to see realism. Wow. So under that aegis, in my eyes, at the behest of a writer once was, listen, use all of the things in your life, your apartment, your car, your clothing. Let's do realism. Peter Parker was in my apartment at one point, that kind of thing. All of the wall hangings. I used my friends' bars and places of businesses and their faces to make it realistic. And yet I thought I had a style, and I thought every writer and artist should make that effort. However, when you get out to outer space and you get surreal stuff and wild stuff, not necessary. But with Marvel, I did characters that were based in reality to a certain extent. Peter Parker's from Queens, Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen, etc., and the Punisher. They all look like relatives of mine, especially the Punisher.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
So I like to have that reality to that extent, but I couldn't choose. If somebody come up with a wild style right now, I don't know if I would say, I prefer realism. I don't think so, because we are in a business. As long as you tell the story, even with a stylized look. Frank Miller's a brilliant storyteller, and he's got a style, an extreme style. So I'm good with that.
That's awesome.
Another pussy answer. Another cowardly answer.
No. Still a great answer. No, it makes me feel like shit for not picking up those other books. God. No, that's the thing too. And there was a couple other things. So you were talking about like, the space stuff, whatever. When you have like a big scene that you have to draw with like, kind of like outer space kind of stuff, Do you like that kind of like work that you have to do? Do you prefer the city stuff? Do you prefer the space stuff? Because I've seen some of your stuff when you do it, and it looks like there's a real joy to the art. Like I see all the little details, all the play. Or do you feel like this is a lot of shit going into this?
Excellent question, and the answer is pretty much both. In that, there's got to be a balance. When I was very young, I was able to sit in on a plot session with Stan and my father when I was a kid, and one of Stan's great lines was, "We have to find that balance between reality and fantasy. Do too much of one, then you need the other. If you find just the right balance, the story is 2/3 reality, and just that little tweak of fantasy, and people are salivating for the next issue to be all about fantasy, and the reverse is also true." So I like both, but I like to balance it. That's the good thing about having characters based in New York City. That was one great thing. When I found out that Peter Parker and Spider-Man lived in Queens, we were driving into Manhattan. My father points Forest Hills. He says, "That's where Peter Parker and Spider-Man live." So, and if the reality of the character with the fantasy involved is fantastic. Now, I love the gritty characters. I love the Daredevil, and I love the Punisher, and even Spider-Man is a street-level character.
Yes.
There was something about that where Superman was perfect. Peter Parker and Spider-Man got the snot beat out of them, and they were imperfect.
Yep.
The costume shrunk in the wash, that kind of thing. And the Aunt May would, shake her finger at Peter Parker. That brought everybody from Metropolis into Queens. Oh my God, that's fantastic. And suddenly I had a character living not too far from me. And I said, "Dad, we got to go past the building." He says, "I'm not sure what building it is." So we drove around Forest Hills for an hour. The man had he has the patience of Job, my father.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
But that's the balance of reality and fantasy. And honestly, there are scenes, and I just did one in the book I'm working on right now, based on a guy named MC Escher.
Okay.
If you look him up, you'll see what I mean. Anybody listening to this, which 8 dimensions. And the scene that I was asked for was outer dimensional. And I had just passed by the image of the stairway painting that MC Escher did. And I've always loved that crazy, insane thing of the 4, 5, 6 different dimensions in one piece of artwork. I did it in the gray area. I did a graphic novel in the gray area, and the character arrives in the gray area, and it was MC Escher's afterlife with 1 trillion different souls up to his face like this. Same kind of feeling of complete claustrophobia. Love that.
Somebody, Albatross again asks, how do you think about drawing characters with more abstract powers like Scarlet Witch?
Great question, and it actually relates right back to the question the point we talked about recently, but Doctor Strange. Love it, because if you have a grasp of how to think out of the box as an artist, then you can get crazy. And I think that's what the fun thing is with the Scarlet Witch. The same as Doctor Strange. You're limited by what your imagination is, and my imagination is what it is because of this business. I had a little bit of it before I started, but all you have to do is look at books, look at comics, look at the films about the comics. Yeah. Oh man, if you don't expand on your imagination. So the Scarlet Witch is a brilliant character. Love her.
Yeah.
Love
her. I love that they finally they gave her an arc with WandaVision. I don't know if you've been watching the series and stuff, but that was beautiful the way they did that, because they were great characters in the movies and stuff too. And then they just completely rounded them out to the fullest extent or whatever. And I'm looking forward to what she's going to do in the new Doctor Strange movie when it comes out.
As I am.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A buddy of mine, Greg.
Keep on asking these good questions.
One of my best friends, Greg Jagger, has a question. He wanted to know: is there much of a difference for you working with the big two than working with independent books?
Until I broke through with Kickass. Honestly, I was terrified. And interestingly enough, the answer was my wife came up with the answer. But I was nervous because I was working with Marvel at the time. And I had to gear towards 15, 14, 13, 12-year-olds and parents who were overseeing that. Can't do adult material. I was terrified. And then my wife said, "Well, but this is adult material going in. You know it. Just apply your whole process to the adult material. And knowing it's adult material, parents won't let those kids read it." And I had a 12-year-old son at the time.
Right.
So I had to kick him out of the office. I'm disemboweling some character.
Right.
And I had to kick my son out of the office. And then my son came to watch the film. So the point is that it's hard to find that middle ground, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I would prefer that you broach the subject of adult material in a classy way with the big two. Right. However, that's what the great thing about the independents is. And I have Schmuggy and Bimbo, which I'm so excited about with Howard, and the Gray Area, which we're working on getting it turned into a film with Legion M. Nice. And I have 4 or 5 other ideas that I'm hoping that when I get the next film done, so to speak, that'll let them read. Then they'll give me that statement. What else have you got? Yeah.
Do you go back in and storyboard those films necessarily? Maybe you've already got the artwork, they've already got the material, but do they bring you back into like, we need you to actually map this out, or is it not something that you're interested in? I
helped out with a little bit with Kickass. I did.
Kickass?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I worked on Big Hero 6. I did some consulting on the film Big Hero 6.
Right.
But only to a certain point before the union guys kicked in, so I had to stop.
Oh, okay. And now they're doing the live action version of Big Hero 6, aren't they?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
That's gonna be exciting.
I created flavors for some of the characters, but the final costumes and the final versions were done by the Disney guys.
Okay.
But yeah, I helped out with things like that, and that's so flattering and so much fun. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Do you, speaking of the Disney guys, have you ever thought about, do you dabble in animation at all? Has it ever crossed your mind to do that kind of stuff? Do you think your style would convert into an animated series?
I think it would, because I'm not as intense with line work to the exclusion of all else. I can do that, but I think a little bit of Romita Senior, Alex Toth-esque Jack Kirby kind of a flair, because I grew up in that when I was younger.
Yeah.
I think it works. And I think it would be fine. Sure. You want to
I would love to see that.
I would love it too. That would be my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
They need to bring back those old kind of 90s cartoons and stuff like that, because I grew up on the 90s X-Men cartoons or whatever and all that stuff. Right. But it's funny because I guess towards the end of the series, the animation started to go because I think there was no more money towards it. So it was like, even as a kid, I was like, the fuck just happened on the screen?
Well,
like,
wait,
it just
isn't artistic animation now computer generated?
Yeah, it's all computer. Yeah, it's pretty much computer generated.
So you do base artwork, and it can turn. I don't know how much you do, but it's a lot less than the 24. 64. Was it 64? Was considered 100% animation back in the day.
Yeah.
A billion drawings had to be done, but at 64 per second or something to that effect.
Right.
I don't think it's that difficult now.
Right. No, it's not. I don't know how I give people like that so much props, because it's like that's the most tedious shit. I tried to animate like a couple things here and there over the years. We had written like an animated show or a series, and we had to have.
Talk about interrupting your thought. I'm thinking about animation. This conversation came up with my son the other day. The greatest drawn animated film of all time is Akira.
Oh, really? I don't think
you have got to see that flick. I met Katsuhiro Otomo over dinner with Mobius, literally in Grenoble, France. One of the greatest moments of my life. 2 of the greatest artists you ever want to meet. Mobius is unconscious how great he was. And I spoke a little French, and all he wanted to talk about was meeting girls. But Katsuhiro Otomo is the guy, and he was a young guy too, but he's the guy that did Akira as a graphic novel series. Got released by Marvel, and then the film. If you're not impressed by seeing that film as an drawn animated film, I don't know how much was computerized, if any. Fantastic, stunningly amazing, fantastic stuff.
I'm definitely going to watch it now. No.
I apologize for interrupting you.
Don't apologize at all. I got nothing. I've streamed everything that's in existence right now. So the fact that you just gave me something else to watch.
Gotta watch that flick. Gotta watch it on the big screen though. It's stunning.
I will. Absolutely, man. Thank you. Yeah, that's great, man. That's good. Akira, you said? Okay, I'll check it out.
Akira. Yes.
Awesome. So do you remember when you were a kid, because you were talking about, is your son getting into the arts at all, or is he?
No, he tried it as a kid and got frustrated that his father and his grandfather were better than him, so he just gave it up.
I understand. So I was going to ask, because that's a great segue too, because do you remember the first thing you drew? Like not even for money or professionally, but do you remember actually like sitting down?
Here's a great story. In Queens Village, my father's got the attic office. And it's 2:00 in the morning, and the monsters that are under my bed are starting to make the bed move.
Yeah.
So I got up terrified. I would think 5 or 6. I forgot how old I was, and I pulled the ladder down. That the Queen's ladder that pulled down, and I went up and crying. I'm saying, Dad, I'm terrified about Bob. And he was drawing Daredevil number 12 with Kazar on the cover.
Oh wow!
And I asked him a couple of questions, and he told me, that Daredevil was blind and he's a superhero. And the top of my head blew off, and I apparently sat down and started drawing the human figure. And I don't know why that first, but I saw all of these characters. If you've seen that cover, number 12, Daredevil is surrounded by the Plunderer, and up here on the left-hand side of the cover is Kazar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to draw the human figure at that point. So I think the first thing I ever did was a very bad human figure.
Wow. That's incredible. Do you have any particular problem with any one body part, or did you have one going? Like, I mean, like Rob Liefeld has his feet thing, and basically and Captain America's chest, or any other anatomy in general. I love.
You know what? Now, no, because I can. I believe it or not, don't move.
All right, I have no place to go.
when I have a close image of a spot in the body that needs to be perfect, I break out the anatomy images.
Oh, wow.
For instance, the rib cage.
Right.
When you move it around and it's got to be tweaked in the back and the rib cage, when it's so loud in the image, in the panel or in the image, and it needs to be right. If you don't want to get an email from somebody from Sheboygan, Michigan saying you can't draw, Romita, get the rib cage right. Which has happened, trust me.
Right.
That's what I do. I will refer to an anatomy book.
And so when you do that, though, like some of these characters, especially like Spider-Man, but a lot of them kind of defy the natural anatomy kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
Do you bend the rule? Like, do you try to stick to it as much as possible? Do you drive yourself crazy with that? Or do you just go, you know what? This is the way this guy looks. And
I got a little bit of OCD in me that I will make sure it is close enough to reality.
Right.
Interestingly enough, I started off where I wasn't good enough to get to reality. And now that I'm able to get to that point, it's important to me. And then the stylized version of it, Spider-Man can't do some of the human being can't do some of the things that Spider-Man can do. But there's got to be that basis in reality. And I love the legs to look a certain way. I got complaints from somebody at a convention that my ankles were too skinny on Spider-Man.
Really?
And I went back, and that person was correct, and I fixed it. You get, especially with social media or emails on sites, Romita can't draw this, and he can't draw this. Instead of cursing, and I go back and look, maybe the person's right.
Wow.
What the hell can only help?
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, too. There was the Straczynski run that you had, one of my all-time favorites. He's an incredible writer. Was it kind of like emotional for you to kind of have to, because the storyline there, Spider-Man got to revisit a lot of the stuff that your dad had kind of drawn previously, and he went through his memories. Did you talk to your dad when you were doing that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. What was it like drawing those?
He kind of shrugged his shoulders. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And again, how do I have an ego with a man like that? But Straczynski, that Joe did a great thing there. That's a very good. And I enjoyed that wholehearterized because it made me know that is legitimizing this brilliant man. Right. And not that he didn't get legitimized over the course of time, but he never tooted his own horn. He was quiet. He called it a job. The man, listen, he thought of it as a job when he was a kid. It was just a job. He needed to put food on the table. Depression, baby. That's the way they were.
Yeah. I feel like that his generation of writers, artists, like even when I listen to interviews with Stan talk about it, it did kind of seem like that. Like they love the work that they do. They love the characters that they do, but they were literally just going to a job every day. Is that something that you think, like, is that the kind of thing you kind of model yourself after, where it's like, because it had, like, for me, I think it would blow my mind if I was drawing these comic book characters and seeing them then on the big screen and getting people to ask me about certain things or whatever. And it's kind of weird to think about back then. They were like going into the office. Yeah.
Well, think about it. The difference between then and now. Look what the internet has done. Look what social media has done. Look what film has done to this business. It's blown egos out of proportion, but not to a bad extent, to the point that there are egos. Whereas back then, they were trying to put food on the table. Think about it. They didn't get the adulation that they deserve because they may have been fine artists that became cartoonists to put food on the table.
Right.
My father was classically trained, a brilliant painter. He did things at 16 I can't do now. and guys of his age were that way. And honestly, I want to become a painter to retire when I retire. If I ever retire, I would. I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm still having fun.
Yeah,
it's the best job. It's the best job that you have with your clothes on. Trust me.
That's a good point too, man. It's like, those guys, didn't get the adulation they deserve. Do you think they got the, money that they, like, some artists like still have, like, like I keep reading about stuff. I think I read it in one of the Marvel book, one of the recent Marvel history books, that would literally art was stolen, missing. What? And then does stuff like that still happen today, or was it? Or people more?
If it happens, nobody knows it. The point is that I heard stories about art lying in stacks on tables over a weekend, and it would go down a little bit every other day over the weekend, whether it was the staff, the janitor staff or not. Then I hear stories about some artists will come in and non-maliciously grab some pages to take with them because they thought it was beautiful.
Wow. Everything's
relative. And back then, nobody thought of the business that it is now as in the sale of art.
Right.
The story that one of my father's Spider-Man issues, it was in the hands of another artist who didn't know that at the time when he got it, that he got it from another writer for a song that it had been lifted, so to speak.
Wow.
So there's stories like that, they're anecdotal, and they might be secondhand, might not all be true, but the difference between then and now is it's a business, and it has been a business for quite a few years.
Right. And it's just, over the time, it's been a little bit safer for art. It's like you guys still get like your, that's good.
Yes.
It would drive. I mean, I feel like that's insane because you guys, how could you possibly keep track of every single piece of art that you draw without some kind of safe, like.
Yeah. But I have a guy that keeps track of them for me.
Oh, that's great.
It works out cars. And I also have a Sicilian mother, and everybody's terrified of me. She can rewire cars. She's 91 and she can rewire cars.
No, I understand, man. I was born in Brooklyn, so I get it. All my family's from Brooklyn. They just kept having children, and they own all of 40th Street. I think just how it is. Oh, that's incredible. Is there any non-comic book hobbies that you have that you enjoy doing, like, or you just,
being a husband to my perfect wife is one. Mm-hmm. Being a son to my perfect son is two. Family, but I like to go to the gym. I like to work out.
Yep.
I'd still love to play softball if I wasn't afraid of breaking a finger.
Right.
But my wife was a bodybuilder when she was younger, and I learned that from her. I don't bodybuild, but I keep myself in shape and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
A little bit of vanity goes a long way towards health, and I'm hoping, I hope I'll be doing this for a lot longer. But family is that hobby. That's awesome, the most important thing to me.
That's incredible. Oh, my buddy Greg wants to know, how does the process work for getting your art tuned into a statue? I have your Batman Black and White from All-Star Batman, and it's amazing.
I think the powers that be just take an image, a two-dimensional image, and they send it to somebody, and it gets done. I wish I knew the details. Rivals, I don't know. I just know that it's done, and I don't know the details of it. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah, I was intelligent, just really good looking.
I was thinking about that too, because I have a bunch of trading cards with your artwork on them, but it's artwork from the comic books. And is that something that you like? Do you feel like I would totally draw new stuff for trading cards? You know what I mean? Or are you just fine with them taking stuff from the?
I'm okay. Well, first of all, they own the imagery. Okay. We get the original artwork back, but it's their game.
Right. So they can basically put it on whatever they want.
If it's done right, I have no complaints, and I haven't had anything to complain about.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one of the things, because I have a bunch of your artwork and stuff like that, and after a while I was just kind of like, does he redraw these, or are they just stamping them on? Does he have anything?
I got a couple of things back over here that I could show, but I think everybody understands. They literally take a pinup of a character, or they might ask you for a specific pinup of a character, so they can facilitate it as a statue or as a mechanical character. It works well for me. I have no problem with it, and they haven't done anything I'm embarrassed over or anything to that extent.
Would you would you ever think about acting or doing like a cameo in these Marvel movies? Because I feel like they need a new Stan Lee. Like, I think you and your dad need to just be put into the
Hey, listen, I got into the Kickass film.
Mm-hmm. That's true, you did.
And I got in, and then they edited my face out because the producer said, you're not authentic enough. I was the only guy from Brooklyn on that effing set, and that cracked me up. The truth is that even with the gray area film, I'm a ham. I've been doing conventions long enough that I'm not afraid of speaking in front of people. I come from a family of very outward people, and the gray area, if it's produced, if it becomes a film, and I'm hoping it does, I told the producer, if you need a short, middle-aged Italian guy from Brooklyn, let me know, and I'll go chase down somebody tomorrow. I can find them for you. They're everywhere. So we'll see if they put me in. I can act. Listen, I had a crappy first marriage. I can act.
Oh shit! That's what I mean, man. It's funny when you said that about that they cut you out of the film because you were the only authentic dude on there. They'll do that constantly. They'll be like, "We need a John Romita type," and then you show up and they're like, "But not you."
Here's another one that the let's see, on a shot of a TV screen, they showed somebody named Tony Romita was released from prison. It was a casual background thing or something like that. It was originally Johnny Romita, and the producer said it again. That's not authentic enough.
Oh my God. Hilarious. You're like, am I even real?
Oh God. And here's an even funnier story about that same producer. You'll love this one. The director, Matthew Vaughn, who he and I got along great.
Right.
Matthew Vaughn, when he told me that I was edited out, I said, why would you do that? I said, I'm the only guy with a busted nose on set. And he laughed. He said, let me tell you something. The producer's terrified of you. He thinks you're connected. He knows you're Sicilian. He thinks you're connected. Right. I said, I should take offense to that, but all right, let him think whatever he wants. The director said, let him go on thinking this. You'll get the best parking spots. You'll get the best food.
Right. Oh my God. That's phenomenal.
He literally thought that I was.
I love that he was just terrified of you. And you're like, you know what? Fuck it. If it gets me more.
Tall guy. I would have punched him in the kneecap if we had gotten to the phone.
Oh God. This is another one. From this series that I just learned even existed. So that is that's the craziest I've ever seen Cap look. Do you love taking a character and trying to push it to the extreme?
Yes. Oh God, yes. Love it. Love thinking outside the box, as long as it's a temporary thing. And the writer is the one that pushed me towards that, but it still comes out that way. Loved everything about it. Yep.
I feel like I feel like you had to have fun doing that kind of thing because Zola in Caps. Yeah. That's fucking incredible. Yes. I think, it's one of those things that you were talking about, like during the pandemic or whatever, like you're inside and you're just drawing or whatever. Do you mind getting into the socio-political aspect of stuff in the comic books? Do you feel like, because they've touched on a few things here and there, given a little wing to it. Do you have any thoughts about how you're going to handle this period of time in the comics?
I learned from my parents as registered independents to be very wary of that. Be careful because there's always a group that you're going to insult.
Right.
I would follow along if knowing that I would be able to go to the other side and do that as well. In other words, if I could find the right balance.
Sure. I
try to avoid the politics in comics, but there is some political correctness, and I have no problem with that.
Right.
I don't think, as long as it's done well.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with it. And I know there's been ideas that come from. Listen, with the 9/11 issue, Joe said, we have to be careful.
Right.
We cannot get too carried away in the other direction. And at the time, it was such a visceral anger that I didn't agree. But I saw what his point was. I didn't agree with it, but I saw what his point was. That's the kind of thing you have to be wary of, is not getting too far in one direction. And I've heard stories, every time I go to a convention and a bar afterwards, what do you think about this?
Right.
I don't talk about it. How about those Yankees? Leave me alone.
No, I hear you. And it's insane too, but it's like one of those things I'm just curious, like how artists are going to I always ask like how artists are going to wind up handling the pandemic situation. If anybody's going to mention it, like I'm even looking, what's crazy? Like the TV shows, some of them adapted to it. Nothing changed faster than commercials.
Yeah,
like
exactly
3 weeks in, the Verizon guy had a mask on. I'm like, should we know something that the rest, like that guy's fucking wearing a mask.
Exactly right. And listen, if it works to a good extent, you can't argue with it. But it's everybody's kind of feeling their way. And Hollywood jumps all in with 2 feet sometimes.
Right.
It can work, and sometimes it won't. And listen, if it doesn't work, the show's gone, or the movie's gone. If it works, it builds.
Sure. Yeah, half the characters wear masks anyway. The only ones are the ones like Wolverine with the bottom out, and he doesn't need it.
That's the truth.
Yeah. That's awesome. How was it? So the 9/11 comic that you came out, was that like the fastest you guys have ever had to put something like together?
Oh, boy. I not so much the deadline on getting it done, but the turnaround from what happened. Yes.
Wow.
We had to keep it fresh to the exclusion of all else, and I had to put images. I would turn this, but I don't want to show you my desk. I have a gigantic drafting table with imagery all over it that I need for reference. I had to do that and update it daily. My wife would come in, and I'd have a pallor about me because of what the imagery was from that day.
Right.
And that's the only thing I could see being a problem for me is that it was terrifying. And
sure.
Unfortunately, that's the way it was. It was terrifying to everybody. I got a couple of buddies that were cops that have to get checked every day because of the fumes from the pit, that kind of thing. There's all sorts of stories, and mine was a turnaround of a book. Come on, I got nothing to say.
No, of course, yeah. It was.
But we did have to turn it around. We had to turn it around quick, and Scott Hanna and I got it done relatively quick. Joe did just an insanely brilliant job on that book. The words there are no words.
Right.
Came from the fact that he had to answer somebody saying there are no words. How do I come up with an idea?
Right.
And then he based the whole book on there are no words. That's just sheer brilliance. And Scott Hanna, he had the same kind of pressure that I did, but there it is. That was special, and for the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
I absolutely, I know what you mean. And I remember when I was in high school when that came out, and I had I think I bought like 2 issues of it and still have it. And it was impactful. It meant a lot to see that kind of stuff. And but I remember thinking at the time too, and I was like, wow, the pressure that everybody must have been under to get this exactly right. And
I was completely wrong. I said, there's no way I'm going to do this. This is
wow.
And then it was explained to me, and I discussed it with my father. My wife and I had discussed it at the outset because we watched it live, and both of us had trepidations about it. And then after getting it explained to me, and I explained it to my father and my wife, and it came out to be what it was. There's nothing. Now the anniversary, I can't believe it. 20 years. I was 8 years old when I did that book. It's fantastic.
Oh man, yeah. That was just it's incredible piece of work, dude. So that was
it is. And Scott Hanna and the color artist didn't like unconsciously beautiful work. Unfortunately, a horrible subject.
Right. Yeah, we'll move on from that. We won't talk about that anymore. So you've got the other stuff coming up. Are you looking forward to getting back into the regular flow of things? You have a group of artists that you guys meet with, hang out, bullshit, and do that kind of stuff, or have you kind of been like, good, everybody leave me alone?
Yeah, I would like to do a convention. I miss conventions, and several artists that I've been in touch with, whether it's casual or emails, we all, after saying that we don't want to do conventions because it interrupted the deadlines, now we all are pining away. We're just missing, jonesing. The San Diego Comic-Con, come on, one of the greats. I went to Sao Paulo, Brazil for what I have been told is the largest convention in the world. There's stunning, fantastic, brilliant stuff. Love it. Got to do it. Got to meet people from all over the world. Loved everything about it. I can't wait to get back to it. And I may get to it and spend a whole year doing it, just nonstop. Maybe take a sabbatical from deadline work. I don't know. I just miss the conventions, and I miss meeting people and speaking to people. And I'll do sketches all day, all night at Marianne. I'll do it, whatever they want.
That's awesome, dude. So you're like me, you're Italian. You're not afraid to go up to anybody. Is there anybody that you met at a convention that literally just blew you away, afraid to go up to, that you didn't meet, that you never met before?
No, I've walked up to a couple of celebrities, but I've always had a little bit of liquid, guts in the glass at lunch. Matter of fact, that's how I met my fantastic wife. San Diego Comic-Con. A couple of my friends took me out and put a couple of glasses of tequila in me. I would have spoke to the Pope that day. And I saw this drop-dead, statuesque, beautiful female. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And she says to me, "That's the best line you can come up with?" And that's 27 years ago.
Wow, man. That's incredible. I've never been to the San Diego Comic-Con. I've gone to other Comic-Cons before, but that's the one I want to get to.
Gotta go.
And go hang out. And I think my friends and I, after being in this for a year, I think maybe my friends and I will probably all go together or something like that. We'll maybe make a trip.
The city's gorgeous too. aside from the convention being done so well. The city and the area, it's just stunning. What's funny is when I first did the show, it was a shanty, a Navy town, a sailor's town. It was not. It was like Times Square, and now it's Disneyland. It's fantastic. It's beautiful, and the ballpark is right there. Fantastic.
If you could go there, if you had to cosplay, I'm assuming you've never. What? I'm asking it. Which one of your favorite characters?
That's the first question of that sort I've been asked. Which character? I don't know. God, I'd have to think about that. Next show you have me on, I'll come up with an answer.
All right. That's a good cliffhanger.
Something that covers up my face for sure, so nobody can see. So nobody will recognize me.
Right. Are you a helmet or a mask guy? That's a good. I feel like
there it is.
That's going to be the question. All right, cool, man. Well, listen, It's been. Thank you for so much for doing this, dude. It's been an hour. I don't want to keep you.
A blast, and I hope I made sense.
You did.
Albatross, did I make any sense? Are you still there, buddy?
I'm sure he's still there. Thank you so much for coming on,
guys. Both of you. At the drop of a hat, you let me know. I'm there. I enjoyed this more than you know.
Thank you, man. Seriously, it's been an absolute joy for me and Tom's.
This was so great. You have no idea. Like, I was really enjoying it backstage. I'm sorry I was doing so much like sharing it and posting it and putting stuff up, but I really wanted to be more involved with it. You was so good.
Well, listen, I'm lucky because I have a morals clause in my new contract with Marvel, with the Disney people. I can't make fun of anybody. So if I would open my mouth with a couple of glasses of wine in me, I could get fired. So I'm very glad I didn't say anything bad about anybody.
Oh, good, man. Listen, I think we'll go for the second round, the next one. Let's see what we get.
I'll have a little bit of liquid guts the next time we have this talk.
Let's do it. We'll all drink.
You guys, let me know. I would love to. Thanks guys.
So much, man. Appreciate
definitely drinking with John Romita Jr. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm a wine guy. I'm an Italian. I love wine.
Oh, okay. You mentioned tequila before, though. I love the tequila. So.
All right. One last thing before I go. Sure. Gran Patron Añejo Piedra.
All right.
And I'll email it to you if you want. Gran Patron Añejo. It is the greatest tequila of all time, and that's the extent. Other than that, I'm a red wine guy.
All right, cool, man. Thank you so much.
All right, fellas, be good.
Dystopia tonight.